Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Make or Break Fantasy Podcast. Same usual suspects today. Myself, Phil Jufrey, Sam, Anthony, all joining me today. How you guys doing?
Doing good. Just getting through another week.
Well, I can't complain. Who would listen? Am I right?
Not us. That's for sure. That is for sure. Um, yeah, rough week for me this week in fantasy. I 0-3.
Sam, what's your record?
Oh, good thing. Yes, I think I'm 4-1. I'm first place.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I'm 4-1 in second place, and I'm only 8 points behind you.
Well, looks like we know who the two knowledgeable fantasy analysts are here.
Yeah. That's totally it. Yep. And let's look at who the least points scored against are. Oh, second least is Anthony. Third least is Sam. Shocker.
Hey,
That's
I can only
Whoa, I have the
I can
most
only
points
score,
scored.
and I've got the second most scored, so it doesn't matter who I'd be playing unless it was
hey,
Sam.
hey, I didn't say it, you did. Anyways, great. Well, let's jump into some recent news today. There was a pretty big news break with Adrian Peterson being traded to the Cardinals. Finally, hallelujah, says every Mark Ingram owner on the planet. What do you guys think about this trade to the Cards?
I think it helps Alvin Kamara the most. Plain and simple. It's not like it's that many additional touches either way for um, Ingram or Kamara, but Kamara's definitely looked more explosive so far.
I think it helps Ingram more. I mean, I don't think Kamara's role is going to change at all. I think it's going to be passing down guy, and Ingram's just going to get a couple more touches a game. I mean, nothing crazy, but should give him a little more consistency there, especially around the goal line. You don't have to worry about Peterson vulturing the touchdowns. But on the flip side of it, I'm not sure it's really going to help Peterson's stock a whole lot. I think he's washed up and old, and I don't think going to the Cardinals is going to help him out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially the Cardinals being banged up.
and old already. I mean, they're basically a retirement community. They did cut
on,
Chris
on,
Johnson.
on offense, anyways.
Yeah, they did cut Chris Johnson, so they're no longer, the oldest team in the NFL history. But yeah, I don't really see Peterson doing much in Arizona. But if you look at it, Adrian Peterson was averaging about 7 touches a game with New Orleans, which I mean seems pretty insignificant. But if you think about it, I mean it was basically like 6 rushes and maybe 1 target or 1 catch. So I mean, who's running between the tackles more? It's mostly Ingram. And Ingram's actually outtouched Kamara. I think it's 55-35, something like that. So 20 more touches. I think those carries, if they were put on Ingram, that's 77 touches, and you're pretty much looking at potentially a borderline RB, like high end RB2 or high end RB or low end RB1. So I think this is a bump for Ingram. I mean, obviously, I think it's a bump for Kamara too. I just think it helps Ingram's stock a lot more.
I guess it kind of depends too on what way the offense goes moving forward. Are they going to continue to try to be this run dominant team, or are they just going to go back to Saints of the past and sling it around? Because if they start slinging it more, that means Kamara's on the field more and a bigger bump for him. So I guess it'll depend on the way the offense plays out.
It could be, yeah. And I think Mark Ingram's like a super underrated pass catcher because I mean he's had 40 plus catches like almost every year he's been a starter in New Orleans. So I don't know. I think both of them will be get an uptick. But I
I
think
definitely think if you're in a bye week pinch and you can get either one of them, not a bad option for 1 week. And if you get Ingram, he's very startable.
I think Ingram's a solid RB2 right now. Very solid RB2. I think Kamara's probably in PPR like a high end RB2 borderline. I mean he depending on who you talk to, it could be a low end RB1, but I mean in our league he's a high end RB1 apparently. But it just all depends. But like yeah, like you said, they're both startable players. I think Adrian Peterson, like if you want to add him as like a late flyer, keep at the end of your bench just in case, maybe.
And if
Maybe.
you held on to him this long, don't drop him now. See what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you still have him, don't drop him. But I wouldn't be opposed to, in 2 weeks, if he's doing nothing, cut him. All right, so jumping into the weekend action. The first game that, we're going to talk about today is Jacksonville versus Pittsburgh. Wow, this was a rough game. I mean, just on all fronts of Pittsburgh, this was a tough, tough game. Big Ben was terrible. 5 picks. Antonio Brown was great. Him and Le'Veon Bell basically caught all the targets. I mean, Fournette's RB1 rest of the season. I think he's pretty much locked in as a top 3 guy for rookie of the year as well. So roll him out there. But what do you guys think about Big Ben? Think he's done?
You'd have to think. I mean, he said it himself. He might not have it anymore. So how are you going to argue with what he's saying about himself?
Yeah.
I mean, he's had bad games before. I mean, he hasn't looked great this year, but
he's also never talked about himself in this sort of a fashion, though.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've heard, there's kind of conflicting reports. Is like one person says, he's being, sarcastic, like, he's just kind of joking about it. But the other point, like, he was talking about retirement before the season. So, I mean, it's not out of the realm possibility that he's like, he literally does not think he has it. He showed
Well,
it.
If he stops playing, I think Bell and Brown are going to be terrible for where their value is right now. I think the way Ben plays and who he yeah, I do. I think this offense revolves around a high caliber passing game who knows the offense very well. And Big Ben might not have the arm ability right now or, in the future, but I think he brings a lot more to the table than anyone else.
You're telling me Landry Jones, who's got experience in his offense, couldn't have rolled out there on Sunday and done exactly what Big Ben did?
This game, yeah. But not in the way that the Pittsburgh offense has been the last 5 years, super high powered and scoring 30 points.
My point is Bell and Brown had their numbers with this awful performance.
Yeah, but when Big Ben went down a couple years ago or last year, Brown was terrible. Bell was the same. I mean, I think Bell kept his numbers the same, but Brown was an average receiver.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe Bell's not impacted then. I could get on board with that.
I think that's what I would say. I would be more concerned as a Brown owner, but even, like worst case scenario, I think Bell holds his value. And I think, he even said it after the game. He's like, he wants to see them go to more of a run heavy offense. I think that's probably the right route. I mean, take some pressure off Big Ben. I mean, he was hucking the ball all over the field this week. Like,
but he wasn't even throwing it downfield. It was all underneath checkdowns. I mean, if you're gonna roll them out there and you've got the weapons, that you at least take a shot down the field once in a while.
Yeah. I mean, Jacksonville's defense is good. Like, I mean, their corners are top notch. Boye and I don't know why I can never remember his name. Their other corner. Anybody?
I'm blanking. Florida State. That's all I got.
Yeah, exactly. I said the same thing the other day. But both top tier corners. But at the same time, they've fallen, completely on their face in the second half against much lesser opponents. All right, so next game, that's just kind of a quick overview. I mean, still not really starting anybody in the Jacksonville wide receivers. Definitely not starting Bortles. Couldn't even Bortle his way to relevance this week. Martavis Bryant, I don't know, boomer bust, flex play, nothing.
Jalen Ramsey.
There it is. That's it. Yes. But yeah, I mean, they were trying to get Martavis Bryant involved in this game. They still couldn't do it. I mean, if he's on your waiver wire, again, end of the bench guy, not bad. Schuster Smith, guy to keep an eye on. I would definitely consider him if I was in a bye week pinch in a deep league, but nothing really more than that. All right, so Indianapolis versus the 49ers. Again, real high-powered offenses here. The big star, I would say, was probably Marlon Mack. I mean, the guy went nuts in his limited carries. I mean, do you think there's a chance that Gore loses his job here?
Slowly.
I think he should. I mean, Mack looked really good. I watched that game. He looked great. I mean, Gore's reliable though. I mean, he plods his way to a few yards. He reads defenses. He blocks well. I just think going forward, it would be stupid not to play Marlon Mack. But
and that's why I think it's gonna be a slow transfer. It's gonna be painful to watch Gore slowly get less and less involved until finally they give it to Marlon Mack.
Yeah. I don't think there's like a super immediate fantasy impact here, but from the standpoint of like, who do you want to roster Marlon Mack? Absolutely. I think he's the more talented running back. I just think, he's expanding his workload for the best case scenario. T.Y. Hilton had another big game here. In every good matchup, he's done really well. So, matchup dependent or wide receiver one, not a guy you can really ever sit. And even when, Jacoby Brissett is out there, I mean, you're basically just waiting on Andrew Luck to come back to have some relevance in those tough matchups. So, flip side of the ball, looking at San Francisco, riding Breida as the hot hand on Sunday. So, I mean, Carlos Hyde, who has been amazing up to this point. I mean, are you really nervous about him?
Yes and no. I don't know. I mean, the Niners are such a weird team to look at offensively. 1 week they can throw the ball all over the field. The next week they can't figure out how to hand the ball off. And I don't mean that literally, but it's just the way they struggle on a semi-weekly basis is just hard to predict.
I mean, if I had him, I would be very nervous. I mean, what kind of top talented running back? I mean, he was in the consideration for RB1 this recently. He got benched for the entire game. I mean, how does that happen? Such a talented player, you rely on him to score you 10, 15 points every week, gets benched. Don't know. I would be really nervous. And he's dropped significant value in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it downgrades him a little bit. You're definitely not, you don't have the same confidence as you were before. I think it's more speaks to Matt Breida and being a must-own for all Carlos Hyde owners and really every league. I think he's the type of guy that if anything happens with Hyde, you're definitely. Did we lose Anthony?
We must have for now.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a guy that needs to be rostered. So I would definitely look at that, but I'm not as worried about him as you are. But I'm definitely it does give you a little pause as to what you're kind of looking at there. So I guess jumping to the next one, Packers Cowboys. Actually, let's save that until we can get Anthony back here. Hold on.
No, he's back.
I'm back. Okay. All right.
You're back. I don't know what happened. Just shut down on me.
Way to go. Anyways, Packers Cowboys. So big game for Aaron Jones on the Packers side. Do you think I mean, this emergence is really threatens Ty Montgomery's job moving forward?
100%.
I'm not 100% sold. I mean, the Cowboys are terrible against the run. They gave up over 200 yards to Gurley last week. They gave up 125 or so yards to Jones this week. I think that plays a little bit into it. I definitely think it's going to take a little bit of the role from Montgomery, but I don't think Montgomery is completely going anywhere either.
Well, I think I saw McCarthy wet himself on the sideline, how excited he was. This guy loves running between the tackles. Just running power run offense when he has the best quarterback in the league. The guy's insane. But you got to take into consideration who the coach is, what he's going to do. And Aaron Jones proved he can run very well.
I just don't think you throw away what Montgomery's shown at the end of last season and early on this season based on one game. It's going to be more of a split than one over the other.
I don't think it's going to be Aaron Jones taking the job by any means, but I think it's going to be a similar situation.
Then we agree.
Yeah, I think it's going to be similar to the Saints and their split.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah,
I agree.
I was just gonna say, I think it's definitely gonna be a split. I think Aaron Jones showed that he can definitely hang in the run game. I mean, Cowboys aside, yeah, he still showed a lot. I think he runs like more of a running back than Montgomery does. One of the reports I saw was that when Montgomery takes a hit, he takes it like a receiver, and when Jones, he's more delivering the hit, which I mean could be why Montgomery's hurt. A little bit of that, but at the same time, it's definitely, I think he's a must own for all Montgomery owners because I mean there's a chance. I mean Montgomery, how
He's
many
a must own
injuries
for
has?
everybody.
Yeah, I mean, how many injuries has he had in his career already? What are we on, 3? I mean, he had the ankle in his rookie year, concussions last year, I think, and then now the ribs. I mean, I think this just kind of ensures that Montgomery's not back until after the bye. Yeah, well, that's my take on it at least. But so the next one is Jordy and Dez, 2 elite wide receivers in this game, both ho hum performances when you'd really against 2 bad secondaries, you'd expect more. I mean, are they really even still elite to you guys?
Jordy is for sure. He is leading the league in touchdowns right now with 6. Even in a bad day, he managed to catch a touchdown pass. Him and Rodgers just have that connection. As long as he's playing with Aaron Rodgers and he's healthy, he's an elite fantasy wide receiver because they're gonna find a way to score. Dez, I don't know. It looks like Dak really likes Cole Beasley. They used him in the red zone twice. There's always good, reliable Jason Witten in the middle of the field. And as Dak showed too, he's got some legs in the red zone. So it doesn't feel as much like Dez is the only red zone target anymore.
I have similar sentiments. I mean, Rodgers makes Jordy elite. Jordy's not elite by himself. Switch the roles. Dez would be better than Jordy on the Packers, but I mean, if Rodgers makes anyone great, and he loves throwing the ball to Jordy, so he's going to be a top tier fantasy player. Dez, I still like him. I mean, Dak targeted him several times. He made some big plays, but I don't know.
I don't know. If you switch positions, I don't know if the Packers could handle all those drops. Like in the playoff game,
Are you kidding me? The Packers receivers drop the ball more than any other team in the league. I think
That's
Rodgers
Jordy.
Martellus Bennett.
Not Jordy, though.
That's Martellus Bennett. That guy must be leading the league in drops just after one game. My God. So frustrating.
That catch he had on the sideline, that was top notch.
That was phenomenal. Along with the throw. Like wow, that was incredible. But the Cowboys offense frustrates me more than almost any other team in the NFL with how they distribute like pass to run. I mean, Zeke hardly touched the ball in the first half, and they stalled out at 15 points for, I don't know, 2 quarters when they could have easily ball controlled. I mean, the Packers were stuffing him.
They didn't get stopped in the first half. They scored on all 3 of their possessions.
Oh, well, maybe it was in the early second. Maybe it was early second.
No, the Cowboys scored on all 3 of their possessions in the second quarter, or first and second quarter.
Maybe it was early second that I'm thinking of.
It was the early third quarter that they stalled a couple times.
Yeah, it wasn't more this game than in prior games because I think Zeke got a lot of work here, and the Packers did a really nice job bottling him up for the first 2.5 quarters. But for some reason, they are content letting Dak throw the ball all over the field and completing about 50 whatever % of his passes, which is below a good level in the NFL. And I think it's really hurting them.
I don't think they want to do that. But the defensive game plan, I mean, you look at last year, I was listening to a few other people talk about it, and the reason the Cowboys won is they had such high time of possession every game, and Zeke was running over them all.
Mm-hmm.
The way to beat the Cowboys, keep their defense on the field, take away Zeke's ability to run or control the clock, let Dak try and beat you, and that's why they're losing and why Zeke isn't having as much success. They have to focus on Dak because opposing defenses are shutting down Zeke.
Well, I mean, even if you allow Dak to throw for 4 touchdowns on any given week, you're still then the Cowboys defense is on the field for half the game, and that's not good for them. So their only option to win games is, like Sam said, control the clock and do what they attempted to do in the fourth quarter. They got the ball with, I think, 9.5 minutes left on that final drive.
Oh, and they milked the clock the whole way
scored
down.
with 1:12 left or 1:11 left. Like they did, that's their blueprint to winning the rest of the season. It's not trying to, get into a track meet with teams.
Yeah, they need ball control. But, I guess, you look at it from a fantasy perspective, Zeke, Dak, Rodgers, Adams, Jordy, all good, all very good, all guys you're starting almost every week. Cobb, I'm really not worried about him. I think, you still roll him out there in a flex if, you need to.
Deep leagues, he's a no-brainer in deep leagues.
Yeah, absolutely. Pats and Bucks Thursday night game. Saw some decent stuff out there. I mean, this was supposed to be a high octane, high scoring game, and it disappointed from that respect. But Brandon Cooks, a guy who came into the the season as a late first round pick, early second, has I would say disappointed to this point. What do you guys think? Is he overhyped?
He's Sam's second favorite player.
I said it from the beginning. I mean, imagine if Edelman was there still. Would he? I mean, he'd get a couple targets a game. I mean, they don't use him enough. I don't know. I think he needs to be the slot guy. Put Hogan on the outside.
Especially when you don't have Gronk. You're Gronkless, and he still can't have a big night.
I have no clue.
He needs to be the focal point of that offense. He's the best receiver they have, and they use him like he's the worst.
Yeah.
Or they use him like he's Randy Moss running decoy routes. I don't know, but they don't even throw the ball to him. Like, I don't know. They're doing with him. I don't know.
I feel like he just hasn't developed that rapport with Brady yet. I mean, this is Hogan's second year there. It's
Amendola. Third year.
Amendola's been there for a while. Obviously, Gronk. I mean, it just doesn't seem like him and Brady are like on the same page. Just really odd. But from a fantasy perspective, you're still holding on to him. I mean, you're not dropping him, but
you have to hold on to him and pray he works out because you're not going to get the value you drafted him at.
Not even going to get close. I mean,
he's not worth it anywhere. He's like a wide receiver 3 at best.
Yeah, I would say right now the pass catcher that's not named Gronk is Chris Hogan. I mean, he's been nothing short of phenomenal.
Amendola's been solid too. I wouldn't be upset if I owned him too.
No, for a waiver wire ad, absolutely not. But outside of that, you really can't trust any other running backs. I
disagree.
James White.
I think James White's he's averaging like 14 points a week. In PPR, if you're in PPR, he's a viable flex option.
Yeah, he's fine in flex. I'm saying you can't week to week. I couldn't tell you what, James White is definitely going to get the work this week. Or Gillislee is definitely going to get the work. And especially with Burkhead coming back, I can't confidently say that James White's even going to keep up the numbers he has.
I think Gillislee's dependent on a touchdown.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, he's going to get 50. He's going to get 50 or 60 yards every week, and it's just going to be whether or not he gets one around the 3-yard line to punch in, and that's going to make or break every week that he's in your lineup.
It's the blunt roll, really is.
Yeah.
No pun intended. So then, I guess, flip side of the coin, Doug Martin on the other side came back, looked really good. It is the Patriots defense, which has actually been sneaky okay against the run outside of Kareem Hunt in week 1, which skews their stats really badly. 40 points does not help. But what do you guys think of Doug Martin? Is he going to be the guy that he's been half the years he's been in the league?
I think so. He looked fresh. I mean, the guy looked good, and they said he didn't practice with contact at all. And he was running people over. He was making good cuts. I mean, he looks great. I'm excited about him. I own him in one league, but I think his value's quickly going up.
Yeah, no argument here.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a guy you're going to want to hold on to unless you can get, for sure RB1 status right now, like guys that are up there like, McCoy and above. Evans will be fine. I mean, Winston looked absolutely atrocious. I don't think he's a QB1 right now anymore. I would put him more in the streaming conversation as a matchup dependent guy. Brait is a tight end one. I think he's a guy you could probably feel confident about throwing out there every week. But other than that, really no other reactions from this game.
I would just say a name to keep an eye on is Adam Humphries. He's their slot guy. With Deshaun Jackson being
right.
injury prone, that's a guy that they could easily slide in and could see targets if something were to happen. Nothing to add yet, maybe, but unless you're in a really deep league, but just someone to keep an eye on going forward.
I think Deshaun Jackson's another guy. Keep an eye on this week, especially. I think he has a good week this week. Bills Bengals, another kind of a slot. I wouldn't say a sloppy game here, but tough game from the Bills. They lost Charles Clay pretty early on there, so Tyrod Taylor literally had no one to throw the ball to other than LaShawn McCoy. So even without McCoy rushing, like being effective in the run game, he's still an RB1, catching a ton of passes. Touchdowns will come, hopefully. And with Clay down, I mean, who else are going to throw the ball to? Not Zay Jones.
Oh God, he is horrible.
He's terrible.
He is god awful. That guy can't. That guy has feet for hands. Like, I don't know how he led the NCAA in receiving. I mean, it must have been like shovel passes, but he needs to figure it out quick. Otherwise, the Bills are in trouble. But with Clay down, I mean, is Tyrod even startable?
No.
I agree.
Yeah. I think he went from a good streamer, like a guy you could pretty much roll out almost any week, and he'll get you, what was this floor, like 12 points with rushing?
I think 14 or 15 with the rushing.
Yeah, to like literally nothing now. So that's tough. I mean, the Bengals wasn't really anything surprising here. I mean, AJ Green went crazy, but he did drop some balls. Better fantasy day than real life day. 180 and a touchdown. He's very good. Nothing there. I think Andy Dalton's intriguing moving forward. I think he could be a matchup dependent guy you could stream, and Mixon's starting to take over that lead role, but behind that offensive line, it's anyone's guess who's going to have a good week. Next game, Jets Browns.
Let's not talk about the Jets Browns, please.
Hey, okay. Well, McCown's we'll just go over some notes. McCown's a legit streamer here. I think in the right matchup, you could run him out there. He'll be okay. Elijah McGuire with Powell injured, definitely a guy you're going to want to own and target on the fantasy or the waiver wire this week. Or if you're a Powell owner, try to scoop him up from someone if you can. Probably a flex guy, more stash potential than anything. Browns backfield, Duke Johnson, PPR, I definitely think is a solid RB2 that you can throw out there. Isaiah Crowell, not a bad game this week, but nothing crazy. A guy you're not interested really in starting right now. Panthers Lions. This was a pretty good game. I think can't really get
surprisingly good. It got interesting after halftime for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess the big question is Cam fully back?
I want to say yes, but it's 2 weeks. I mean, he had a bad start to this season. It's hard to, say going forward he's going to be, weeks 4 and 5 Cam versus weeks 1, 2, and 3 Cam. So, I mean, it definitely makes things more interesting in the NFC South if he's good. So I'm hoping that he continues on this upward track.
I think he's back until he gets hurt again. I think a lot of his game is mental. He's very weak emotionally, mentally. And I feel like his injuries from last year really stuck around for a long time. He was never able to get past it, and he's been looking great. He's been putting balls where they need to be, which is very unlike Cam for the past 3 years or 2 years, whatever. I think he's back. I think the Panthers are one of the best teams when Cam's on his A game, and I think they can be a serious contender for the Super Bowl.
I think there's a 0% chance they win the Super Bowl. I'm just going to say that now. But they could definitely make a run in the playoffs. They're gonna be a tough out late if Cam plays well. But I think Cam is kind of back. I'm not 100% buying it yet. I'm probably at about 80%. I'd like to see him, string a couple more together, maybe one or two more before I'm, jumping 2 feet in, saying like, oh, top three quarterback. But he's definitely in the or the quarterback one conversation now. I think there's no question that you can roll him out there relatively confidently. Benjamin and Funchess both had a pretty decent game here. Funchess slightly better than Benjamin, but I mean, who would you rather own between the two?
Funchess.
Man, I'll say Funchess only because Benjamin has struggled to stay on the field.
I don't think he's good. Like, I don't think he's a good player. I think he has all the physical tools, and I just don't think he's a good player. Like, I think Funchess is a solid receiver. I think he's got quickness. He runs routes well. I mean, he's got the size. Benjamin just has all the physical tools you want to see, and I don't know. Like, he reminds me of Zay Jones.
I think he's a bad route runner.
He's a terrible route runner, that's for sure. You can't get up press coverage either. It's I don't know. I think Funchess is the guy to own. I think Benjamin is interesting if you're in a pinch, but I wouldn't be targeting him. Other side of the ball, looking at the Lions, are you worried about Stafford?
Only because that offensive line didn't look good. I think most weeks he's going to be fine. They got off to a slow start offensively, and that kind of just set the day on a downward path.
I never believed Stafford to be a good quarterback. I mean, he makes a lot of money, and he's just not worth it. He's average. He has some good games, some bad games. I mean, maybe
fantasy-wise at least.
I mean, they've been serviceable. I think he's had a couple really good games, and recently he's been all right.
We're not talking about him for league MVP. We're talking about him as a fantasy quarterback option.
I know that. I'd be nervous.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. From the standpoint of like him being a QB1, I would be nervous, but I would probably put him at the bottom end of that, more matchup dependent. I mean, he's not a gunslinger guy. I mean, he's not a guy that's going to go out there and huck the ball down the field. I mean, in this offense with Jim Bob Cooter, it's mostly, dink and dunk, ball control, move the ball down the field, establish field position. And that's what he's good at. I mean, that's where he shines. He's not the guy that's going to throw the ball. I mean, he doesn't have Calvin Johnson anymore. Which, I mean, brings me to the next point. I mean, are you worried about Golden Tate?
Yes.
No, because he's a dink and dunk receiver.
Stafford spreads the ball out way too much. I think there's 10 guys that run routes for their team, and he's probably throwing the ball evenly distributed to everyone. I don't know why he does not focus on his best receivers. Marvin Jones is a really, really talented receiver. He made a lot of big plays last year early in the season, and then he's disappeared completely. Golden Tate, I mean, he's going to have some good games. He's going to have some bad games. Just depends whatever mood Stafford's in.
Yeah, I think I'm a little nervous about Golden Tate. He started slow last year. He was like wide receiver 70 something, and actually finished, in the last stretch, pretty highly. So I wouldn't, drop him or panic too much. Like, I'm holding on to him, but I'm not like, super excited about his prospects moving forward. Amir Abdullah, I'd say, is an intriguing, low end RB2 flex play based on matchup. McCaffrey, RB2 and PPR, I would say maybe lower end, flex and standard. I'm not overly excited about either of those guys. McCaffrey, had a great preseason and really slowed down. And I think that has a little to do with Cam's struggles as well, but Cam's never been a guy to dump the ball off. So
I think with McCaffrey, they're slowly working him into the offense the way he should be instead of making him the focal point. And so I think you may see improved production from McCaffrey going forward. Abdullah is going to be more matchup dependent going forward.
Yeah. McCaffrey is like super ineffective running the ball. Um, Titans Dolphins, next game. This was an ugly
Next.
one. All right, so Mariota being out, no real news on the Tennessee side. DeMarco is still the guy to own. He got the vast majority of the work. The Dolphins as a whole, Jay Cutler, what are you doing? He at this point it looks like he should have stayed retired. Parker went out with an ankle injury early. I still think he's fine. I like Parker moving forward. I think Jarvis Landry is still a good guy in PPR, not so much in standard. And Ajayi, I'm worried. If I'm an Ajayi owner, not much you could do with him at this point unless you can get something decent in a package. But I would definitely be a little worried. Chargers Giants. This was another ugly game. Um, big game from Gordon, which is nice to see. He talked to the coach this week and basically just said, he wants more work. And he got it. He was really good this week. Rivers is definitely an RB1 streamer, guy that you could probably start every week and feel relatively comfortable with. Giants lost everyone. They might go 0-16 now. If I had to guess right now, I don't think I could pick them to win any game. But Sterling Shepard, I think he's probably, once he gets healthy, is the wide receiver to own there. And Evan Engram, he's another interesting pass catcher. He's been pretty good so far this year, but
Catchless this weekend, surprisingly.
Yeah, FanDuel, thanks a lot.
And that could just be bad luck, and who knows. But if you can get Ingram, I would think that's definitely somebody you want to own, especially early on in this recovery process.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way to go about it. But outside of that, Gallman, that the only guy you want to own for the Giants?
I don't even know if you want that. They're gonna take away the run game. They
don't have a run game.
I would not start any Giant.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I think Gallman needs to be owned, but I don't. He's going to get heavy workload, but I'm not I wouldn't project him at anything significant. Let's see. From the Chargers side, outside of Rivers, Gordon, Keenan Allen was okay in PPR. He didn't kill you, but he didn't really help you. Other than that, I think that's pretty much their offense. So
Mike Williams is coming back this week, so just someone to keep an eye on.
Yeah, interesting. I think it's more of a. If you want to pick him up in a deeper league, deep bench, worth it. I think outside of that, just wait and see. 10-team league, you're not. He's
no 10-team league, not rostering him yet.
Yeah, leave him on the waiver wire. Next game, Cardinals Eagles. This was a monster game from Wentz and a terrible game from the Cardinals. I think Wentz is a true QB1 at this point.
Yes.
Yeah. He's throwing the ball all over the field. They're throwing it a ton continually. I've got no reason to believe it's going to slow down.
Yeah, and he runs, which I like a lot. Even 20, 30 yards, it helps. Can you, on the opposite side of that, can you trust any Arizona pass catcher?
No, I don't think so. Fitz has been on and off. He's all right. Jerron Brown was playing 90% of the snaps 2 weeks in a row, and then he just dropped down to 50 or 60 or whatever it was. They're all over the place. Don't know.
Yeah, I think
Fitz is going to be on the field, and he's shown in the past that he can. He still has the talent to play and make plays. So I wouldn't give up on him yet.
Yeah, I think Fitz is definitely the guy to own there. Jerron Brown would probably be number 2 if I had to pick a number 2. I think he's a guy you could probably stream, if you definitely, if you're stuck in bye weeks. Just a big receiver that, when they're throwing the ball 40 times a game is going to get some looks. Other than that, I think Ellington is definitely the running back to own in Arizona, especially with the amount of pass attempts that they've had. I think Adrian
Welcome
Peterson,
back 2014.
Yeah, seriously. He's been pretty good so far. And I think he's definitely holds more value in PPR. So, and Palmer, volume and matchup dependent streamer. So if you're stuck at QB, you own Andrew Luck, you have some bye weeks, definitely look at Palmer if he has a good matchup. Seahawks Rams. This was an interesting game. Um, First of all, on the Seahawks side, the running backs are a wasteland. Just avoid them. Rawls is the only guy you might want to speculate on in a deep league. But are you worried about Russell Wilson?
Yeah, he's had one good game all season, and it came against the Colts.
He had a couple of good games, I think.
He has one. Actually, he hasn't been very good. For where he was drafted,
yeah, he was drafted at what, quarterback 5 or 6?
Something like that, yeah.
And he's
he put up 40 points against the Titans and 30 against the Colts.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so 2. Sorry.
Against 2 bad defense.
Yeah, Seahawks have always been a slow starting team.
That's true.
Without a running game, what choice do they have but to pass it?
Yeah, he is to end the season like weeks, I would say 12 through 16. He has a lot of really good matchups. You look at San Francisco, Philadelphia, Jacksonville, which isn't a great matchup, but then you look at the Rams, which they've been hot and cold, and Dallas, week 16. That's a nice matchup. But other than that, I would say I'm worried about Russell Wilson. Again, not dropping him, but not. I would be trying to add a guy like Carson Wentz if you could to bolster those tough weeks when you just aren't confident. Baldwin, you guys think he's a wide receiver 1 or 2 still?
2 at best.
He had a groin injury 2 weeks ago. Came out of the game, didn't play a lot of the snaps 2 weeks ago, and then this week, I think it was still lingering. I think after the bye week, he's going to be back in the action again.
Yeah, I think the injury definitely hampered him. I don't know.
Maybe a high-end wide receiver too. The value, if you have him, don't trade him because the value where he's at now is going to be lower than what he's going to be the rest of the season.
Yeah, he's always been a streaky guy. He had that stretch of 4 games. He had 9 total touchdowns 2 years ago. He's always been a guy that he's gonna put up huge numbers. He's not your prototypical Jordy's, your AJ Greens. He's a guy that's gonna be streaky. So I would stick with him. Definitely. Todd Gurley.
Rough
game. Tough game. What do you guys, is he still top 3 running back moving forward? Top 4?
Yeah.
Top 4, yeah. Not top 3.
I'm gonna say no.
And you're gonna put one bad game against the Seattle defense, who showed up.
They're terrible run defense.
I'm just saying their defense in general, though.
Well, Goff looked like dog piss.
Right, Goff didn't help anybody.
Well, sure, but you have to look at their schedule coming up, and that's what concerns me the most. You have Jacksonville, who's been hot and cold against the run. They're not great. They're not bad. They're kind of middle of the road. Arizona, who's an excellent run defense. Giants, Houston, Minnesota, and New Orleans, which is good. Then he has Arizona again. Then he has Philly, and then Seattle and Tennessee.
I think it's going to hinge a lot on Goff.
Yeah.
If Goff plays like he did the first 4 weeks, there's no issue. If he plays like he did against Seattle, there's going to be a big issue.
Yeah, I don't know. With those matchups, I would be, if I could shop him right now and I could get a guy, I don't think you're downgrading him too much, but if you could trade him for, say you're decent at running back, you have Duke Johnson as a 3rd running back, and you could go out and get AJ Green, I'd do it. Julio, guy who struggled. You're not downgrading him. You're not really downgrading him at that point. You're just kind of.
No, I think in 12 teams and beyond, it's going to be tough to have that kind of.
Oh, the depth, yeah.
The depth to swing that.
Yeah. I wouldn't. If I could get one of those guys and throw in running back, I'd do it. But
no, but
I mean,
flip the coin though. If someone's coming to you with Todd Gurley and says, I want Julio Jones and Duke Johnson, or not Duke Johnson because he's Amir Abdullah,
yeah.
are you gonna
No one's
be
gonna
like,
pick
yeah,
that. Yeah.
Well,
right?
me, no, because I don't like him.
That's not what I'm talking. You get my point.
I mean,
But
I traded Odell Beckham for Todd Gurley last week.
Okay.
I lucked out hard, but I believed in Gurley.
Well,
If Odell Beckham was healthy, would I be regretting it? Yeah. But
yeah, but he's not.
fantasy guys were on my side.
Well, next one, Sammy Watkins. Another disappointing performance. Not just another player with a disappointing performance, but another disappointing performance for him. 0 catches on 4 targets. I don't even know if you can start him. I don't think he's startable in anything but like 14 or bigger. And even then, I would question it. I mean, who do you guys think's the pass catcher to own in LA?
If you are looking for anyone to say Cooper Kupp, you are not going to hear that anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
He loves throwing to Higbee. I don't even know what position that guy plays.
Tight end. He does like throwing.
If I had to pick a wide receiver, I would say Robert Woods.
Red Cooper Kupp.
No, Robert Woods.
I fill you up.
To drop touchdowns.
You are going to start Cooper Kupp this week against me, and it's going to be your downfall.
Nope. Who else am I going to start? Corey Clement?
Anybody.
No.
Lock it.
Cooper Kupp is, I think, the wide receiver to own in LA. Unless you got Higbee, who I think is another pass catcher who could be interesting. Cooper Kupp is just a guy that's consistent. I mean,
he's not.
Yes, he is. How is he not consistent? More consistent than Watkins, unless you count zeros as being he's consistently getting zeros.
What's he lucked into 2 touchdowns this year, right?
Who?
Kupp.
How do you call lucking into touchdowns? Everyone lucks into touchdowns.
Cooper Kupp, week 1, 4 receptions, 76 yards, touchdown. Week 2, 3 receptions, 33 yards. Week 3, 2 receptions, 17 yards. Week 4, 5 receptions, 60 yards, and a touchdown. And week 5, 3 receptions for 44 yards. So
it doesn't sound consistent to me.
Okay, I'm gonna read you some stats here, and you tell me if this is significantly better. Just the numbers, right? 10.6, 15.8, 16.1, 6.
That's better.
How is that better? It's the same thing.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
That was 3 good games.
3 games
out of
10,
4.
The highest was 16.
Yeah, but it was 10, 16, what would you say, 14?
It's like 10, 15, 16, 6.
Okay, so 3 out of the 4 games.
Double digits.
Double digits.
2 out of 5 games the other way.
That player was a top 5 overall pick. Cooper Kupp was a 13th round pick. I mean, that's Julio Jones.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
You're comparing Cooper Kupp to Julio Jones.
Cooper Kupp is touchdown dependent.
He's a startable player.
He's a touchdown dependent.
In PPR, he's a startable player. In
the weeks in the weeks he doesn't get touchdowns, he's got under 10 points. The 2 weeks he has touchdowns, he's over 10 points. He's touchdown dependent.
Well, not to belabor the point, but he's ownable and startable. Anyways, who else? Who else do you own in LA? Who else? Tell me who's more consistent than Cooper Kupp in
No one. That's what I said at the beginning of the year. You don't start anybody in LA.
You said that in Jacksonville too.
Okay, you don't start anybody there either. None of the receivers.
Leonard Fournette, how you doing?
Well, we're talking about receivers, aren't we?
Leonard Fournette, how's he doing? You said you would never start a Jacksonville running back.
I don't believe that. I think we're talking about.
I'll run it back.
Keep this moving.
I'll run it back. Okay, Ravens, Raiders. I mean, Boris Allen, good player. Collins, good player. I mean, they both have their roles. I think once Collins establishes that he can hold on to the ball more regularly, his role will expand. But I mean, Allen got the goal line touch. I don't foresee that being too long for that role. He scored with it, but I think that ultimately becomes Collins' role. Mike Wallace had a big game. Could be a streamer. If you're really desperate. Lynch, is he even startable?
Not right now.
He looks old. Looks bad.
He looks like he took a year off of football.
Yeah, he looks like an old guy that took a year off football. I think he's done. Honestly, I think he's a low end, maybe RB2 flex guy ish. I don't even know. I don't even know if you can put him in the flex consideration with how many wide receivers are probably better than him. But if you're desperate, I suppose.
Yeah, no argument.
Amari Cooper. What do you guys think about him?
Woof.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to believe in the talent, I guess, but
without Derek Carr, it's tough.
Yeah. Well, Derek Carr could be back this week.
Let's hope so.
Practice last week. I mean, I don't know. It can't get any worse. I don't think you're getting rid of Cooper, but if you have better options, or if you have other options, might be time. Chiefs Texans will be the last game we'll talk about. Alex Smith, I think he's an easy QB1 at this point. I mean, he's been nothing short of phenomenal. Doesn't even have a turnover, I believe, and the Chiefs haven't had a turnover since the first carry of the young NFL career of Kareem Hunt. Travis Kelce dealing with a concussion, and Kareem Hunt is still amazing. Tyreek Hill's good too. I mean, just kind of a guy that you're hoping for a big play or 2 or 3. Returns a touchdown or returns a punt here, which definitely helped his day. Deshaun Watson, though, wow, just wow.
Yeah, called that one wrong. Called that one wrong. We'll see if it continues. It's only been 2 weeks, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where I think he's gonna win people their fantasy leagues this year. I think he's that good.
Very reminiscent of RG3 when he started.
Yeah.
First year in the league.
Hello? You there? Oh. You cut out for a second. Yeah, I think he's definitely a guy where I would say he's less divisive than RG3, where he's probably a little bit more consistent of a passer in the pocket. But not I would say not the same running prowess. All right, so we're actually going to have a guest on today. You guys know this, but obviously he's a guy that we play fantasy sports with. We've friends with for a long time. Greg sent him an invite to join us here.
Real quick while we're waiting on him, Bears Vikings, nothing to talk about really.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean Diggs, I think he'll be okay.
Bradford looked horrible.
Well, Trubisky, not the savior everyone thought he was going to be.
I thought he looked good, actually.
I didn't realize 12 of 25 passing with 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and like 160 yards was good. But what do I know?
I'm just fantasy-wise, no, but watching the game, he moved around well.
He did move around. Pat O'Donnell's clearly the best thrower of the football on that team.
The most consistent passer for sure.
He had their first play of over 30 yards on the season as the punter.
Hey, someone's got to start it. So, joining us today will be Greg Ermatinger, the owner of Gruden's Grinders, one of the long-standing members of our league, and avid fantasy player. I will say, he's pulled off some real veteran moves. Especially dropping Chris Ivory last year. That was real great.
I tell you what, that Chris Ivory guy, he's one of them ball players that you just never know what you're going to get. I'll drop the Gruden act. But, yeah, I've made some doozies. I tend to overreact, but keeps it exciting. And y'all keep having me back year after year. So if you ain't moving, you ain't having fun.
Fair enough. Well, I guess the first thing we're gonna throw you in the fire here, Greg. Waiver wire targets. Who are you looking at this week?
Well, if you'd asked me last week, I had a laundry list of players to go after, but still some names that if you're in a shallower league that are still out there that are less likely to be owned in certain leagues. Obviously, last night, second half, if you didn't fall asleep during the first, Jerick McKinnon sure had a nice performance for the Vikings, and I think everybody kind of jumped on the Latavius Murray bandwagon after, unfortunately, Cook went down with that ACL. The guy to own for sure in that backfield. Another target I like here, and perhaps he's not on radars yet, but in the deeper leagues certainly is. Austin Seferian-Jenkins, tight end for the Jets. It's an offense a lot of people try to stay away from. However, he's a target share guy that you look at that Robbie Anderson and Jermaine Kearse. There's not a lot of targets going around. Bilal Powell just went down. Who knows about I forget the Elijah, what's his last name?
McGuire.
McGuire, thank you. Eli McGuire and Austin Seferian-Jenkins. But if you're in a pinch this week, a lot of guys went down. As we know, tight end's been a very thin position. Those are two that I would definitely look for. And if you're getting real desperate on the quarterback side of things, it's not too favorable matchup in Houston this weekend for Hogan. I know that that might be a little bit of a flyer. As y'all know, I do tend to have a flair for the dramatic and a high upswing type player. But without J.J. Watt, without Whitney Merciless, they're going to be facing a defense that's in scramble mode after a Sunday night game. It's an early noon kickoff. Hogan looked pretty good when he came in relief of DeShone Kizer the other day. I know it was the Jets, but let's not forget the Jets are not as bad as perhaps we might have thought they would be. So I think Hogan might have a decent day. Texans cornerbacks are not what they were last year. The secondary is banged up as well. So I look to Hogan to perhaps catch a defense that's struggling right now and maybe a little bit down on themselves after losing two of their leaders on the defense. So
yeah,
we'll see.
I think you nailed it. I think the Hogan call is interesting. I like that one. I think he's probably, funny thing is, I think he's actually probably more athletic than DeShone Kizer. A lot of reports coming out last year had him as, a lot of people are saying he's kind of the guy that they were more confident in as a starter, and he just really never got the looks. But he looked great. On Sunday, outside of the one pick, he moved the ball. He was, he was efficient for the most part. And in a Browns offense that they're kind of devoid of playmakers, he could, potentially bust out 50, 60 yards, which could, balance out the 3-4 picks he could throw.
Then again, Big Ben. If you're a Big Ben owner, how many picks are you really measuring there, right? What's the trade-off? I don't know. He looked strong. He looked like he had a command of the offense. And I kind of like the guys who come in. Maybe it's a Case Keenum, a Hogan, who
Kirk Cousins.
have a little something to prove. They've been overlooked. With starters ahead of them or a rookie getting playing time over them. They play with a chip on their shoulder. I wouldn't recommend it just yet, but I like would we maybe use the word hope for Chicago fans after last night that they might actually have a competent quarterback who, I know he made the late pick, which, echoes of Jay Cutler, I'm sure, but it's still, I think they left the game confident that, if you're looking desperate plays towards the end of the season, they need to get playmakers around him. But you look at the athlete, you look at the overall, what can they bring as their rushing upside to raise that floor and kind of go from there. So definitely a flyer pick. I'm not saying go to the bank on it this week, but if you're desperate, if you're in a pinch, and if you're just fed up with Big Ben and you're not sure what you're going to get against Kansas City, I like him over, Blake Bortles seems to be available in just about every league, but they don't throw the ball.
True.
Greg's referring to Mitch Trubisky for those that didn't hear him say that early on.
Yeah.
Oh, I might have mumbled. I apologize.
No, it's all right. Any other waiver wire targets you guys are looking at?
Well, for me, in our league, I can't even play the waiver wire, so I don't even try.
Yeah, me neither.
But if I was to, I put in one waiver claim that I know I'm not going to get, and that's Marlon Mack.
Yeah, you're definitely not going to get him.
And Mac's an interesting name too that I thought about placing a claim. I don't know if I would have a shot or not, truth be told, but I'm sure he'll be scooped up. But Indianapolis, I mean, that it's just that offense has continued to be a little bit of a mystery for me. Pleasantly surprised to see T.Y. Hilton continue to put up the numbers that I don't know if we thought he could have without Andrew Luck, but interesting to see Marlon Mack get a nice jump there last week. 91 yards on I think 19 carries, so pretty good
9.
yards per touch. So even better, yards per carry, and we'll see. The AFC South, man. I mean, you've got some stout run defenses that he's about to face in the second half of the season as a rookie. I'm not entirely sure how he treads through that, but if they commit to running the ball, he could be a nice. You're desperate if you're been hit by the injury bug, or you're just not getting production out of some of your guys like Ajayi, DeMarco Murray, both draft picks that I took, and am now in the carousel of trying to play plug and play and maneuver some trades as well. So it's a good call, Sam. I think another receiver that may not be owned, and I'll mention it because of the quarterback play last night, Kendall Wright. There's a guy who, boy, I think it was 4 of 5 targets. The rest of the team was 8 of 20 for Mitch Trubisky. Just throwing out some numbers there. You can fact check me on that one, but there was definitely a safety blanket, if you will, which for any young quarterback, it's good to know. Sometimes it's a tight end. Zach Miller, if you're in a pinch for a tight end as well. I mentioned Austin Seferian-Jenkins, but I think Zach Miller could also be another guy. He got a garbage touchdown late. He was involved with that fluke little 2-point conversion that everybody was talking about this morning. If they'd watched Badger football back in 2011, Phil, I know that you're familiar with that Brad Canada offense or Matt Canada, excuse me, the Matt Canada offense and Russell Wilson. That was a play they ran quite a little bit, so it's kind of neat to see that last night. But I guess those are some people to look for. And if you're streaming kickers, there's a lot of them coming up. There's a lot of good kickers on bye week this week.
True.
Play the kicker waiver next week.
Good calls. I definitely good calls. But Kendall Wright's another interesting one. I really like Kendall Wright this week. Juju Smith-Schuster, another guy that I think in deeper leagues is interesting. Just Martavis Bryant kind of being up and down the way he's been. You never know. But he's an interesting name to keep out there. But wanted to see how I noticed the Green Bay Packer hat over there. How was the game this weekend?
The game was fun. I was fortunate enough to I live in Houston, drove up to Dallas to meet up with one of the other league members, David Green, who lives up in Dallas. And second attempt in 9 months where I've left a very proud Packer fan in front of a lot of sad Dallas Cowboys fans. I'll tell you what, when Dak scored and I was getting beer dumped on me in celebration from behind, I turned around and I said, y'all left way too much time for number 12. And as Stephen A. Smith would say, he's a bad man. And proved to only need 62 of those 73 seconds. So it was very cool and definitely enjoyed it. So Packers are looking better. Offense, I mean, if you got 12 on that team, I think it's safe to own anybody involved in that offense at this point. And Aaron Jones, obviously, he was a hot topic last week on the waiver wire. Look to him, even though reports indicate that Ty Montgomery might remain the number one, they're going to give him a run the rest of the season. He definitely showed he is the best in between the tackle option that they have. First 100-yard rushing performance since Montgomery, I think, was it week 14 last year in Chicago, or was that week 13?
Yeah,
late in the season.
Been a minute, and they could definitely benefit. And I'm sure Rodgers would like to have a little bit of that weight lifted from his shoulders, but he's proven he can lead that offense to the passing game. So, my Packers hot takes for you.
I'm jealous. All right, let's go through some grade the trade. Now, I've been going through some trades on Twitter and whatever, but these are trades that happen in our league that I think are interesting ones to talk about, just because they are near and dear to us and we kind of understand the impacts. But first trade that just actually happened.
I think you should specify if it was before this set of games or is this leading into week 6, just to kind of put some perspective onto it.
Yeah, this was during the I guess this week of games, but after the Detroit game, this was Cam Newton and Connor, so the handcuff to Le'Veon Bell for Danny Amendola and Mike Gillislee. What do you guys think?
I think it's fair trade. I mean, Cam's looking good. Danny Amendola's valuable. Gillisley's hit or miss, but I think it was overall pretty even.
I don't see anything too crazy with it.
Agree with both Sam and Anthony here. I think that Amendola in that passing game is proven to be he's stepped into the void left by injury, and Brady always looks for that guy over the middle, as we've seen in years past. And Thursday night was another indication that he's going to be around, he's going to be involved. The only thing that worries me is that with Belichick and that offense, you just never know. Ask a Brandon Cooks owner. 1 week it's awesome, and the next week you're going, what gives? I don't know. So I think that long term you have that going. And then Mike Gillislee,
he's a plug and play if you had to on a bye week.
RB3, borderline bye week start if you're in a pinch, but I don't feel confident starting him on a weekly basis. I think he's kind of matchup at this point, and wait and see.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's pretty even. The next one is Tyler Lockett and Phillip Rivers for Jerron Brown.
I'm going to grade this one a D- for the Phillip Rivers side. That was my trade. No one in the entire league would take Phillip Rivers from me for anything. I mean, hell, I got to the point where I wanted to take a risk on Jerron Brown. He played 90% of the snaps 2 weeks in a row in a high-powered offense. But what do you know? This week he plays 50%. I mean, it was what it was, but the Phillip Rivers side is more valuable.
I was super high on Jerron Brown coming into this week, and I'm the one that traded Jerron Brown, and I actually had to seriously debate this because I needed him this week. I had, bye weeks all over the place, and I thought he was actually going to have a huge week, which I thought might help me, which turned out unless he scored 20 touchdowns, it wouldn't have. But it was a trade I made out of necessity. I mean, I needed a quarterback, and Phillip Rivers was the best option. What do you guys think?
Yeah, if I could just throw a grade on there, I don't know if I'd go D-. I don't think I'd go that extreme, but it's a solid C- if I had to be. But once again, it all comes down to need, right? And as everybody in our league knows, I don't know if I have a lot of logic when it comes to trade. I'm a very true to my gut feel. If I think it's what I need, if I think it helps the other player or the other team, as I guess democratic as that sounds of spreading the love, I try to make sure that I'm eyeing up value. But if you're heavy in quarterback and you're not going to lose out on getting rid of Phillip Rivers to fill a need that you really have, I say go for it. You make the deal.
You take a chance.
You take a chance. And a Tyler Lockett, you're not missing much there. Jaron Brown's an upgrade. And if you have to flip a backup quarterback that you're not going to use anyway, I say it's worth it. The only thing, which receiver in Arizona is going to be on a weekly basis? It's been this way for the last, I would argue, 3 years. And then you add in J.J. Nelson this year, and he kind of came on strong at the end of last year as well in the second half. I mean, whether it's J.J., whether it's John Brown, whether it's Jaron Brown, or whether it's Fitz, it's a toss-up. So it's a good offense to be a part of, but you're going to have those boomer bust weeks, and you have to be prepared for that. So,
yep, definitely. Next trade was prior to this week's games. I think it was early in the week. It was Demaryius Thomas and Mohamed Sanu for Charles Clay and Pierre Garçon.
Can I jump in on this one?
I was just going to say I was the receiver of Sanu and Demaryius Thomas. I was desperate at receiver, and the player that I traded with was desperate for playing bodies. I looked at his roster prior to the trade, and he had like 7 or 8 bye weeks. So I think he kind of just needed players to fill a role, and Garçon's quality. Clay's obviously hurt. I don't know. Prior to the week, I thought it was pretty fair.
Yeah, I was going to chime in. I think prior to the week, it was a straight up B+ for both teams, if not borderline A-. I think it fit needs for both. You got Charles Clay, who, once again, picked him up week 1 on the waiver wire, got nervous, cold feet, didn't know if I trusted the Buffalo offense, dropped him, desperately tried to get him back onto my team as I was weak in tight end post-draft. Prior to his knee injury, I think he could have finished top 5 tight end. I think he was on pace. He was the only target of that offense. He established a really good rapport with Tyrod Taylor. And then, as you mentioned, Anthony Pierre-Garçon. The guy's a target monster. He may not put up a boatload of touchdowns because 49ers aren't going to score a lot of points. They're always going to play from behind. Demaryius is a big name. It's a shock value name. But if you compare the production, I think it's relatively similar. And I like the trade. When I saw it come through as somebody who was trying to get Clay, I really liked the move for both teams. I thought it was well done.
I agree. I think it was a B+ both ways. Next trade. Michael Crabtree and Jay Ajayi or DeAndre Hopkins and Tevin Coleman. This trade was completed before last weekend, or was that earlier this week? Or last week? Yeah. Okay, that was an early one.
I think it was right before Thursday Night Football that this trade went through.
The only reason I didn't understand this trade, it's grade wise I'd give it a B probably both ways. But the owner who received Michael Crabtree also owns Amari Cooper. So now he's going to start both Raiders receivers on a weekly basis. Just a little odd to me.
I would give it a solid A for one side and a D for the other side.
I would totally agree with that.
The side receiving DeAndre Hopkins and Tevin Coleman killed it.
Yeah, I agree.
Crabtree was hurt, but he had a good week. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Crabtree's been good so far.
If you could get rid of Ajayi, do it. He's been horrible, but I think he'll turn around eventually. But Hopkins is, in my opinion, I would say a top 5 wide receiver right now. He has been playing amazing. Tevin Coleman's a decent flex. He's going to put up 10 points a week at least, which is more than Ajayi. I think both positions were an upgrade for the Hopkins-Coleman side.
I think Ajayi was probably more valuable at the time, at least. And, I mean, it wasn't more so the values for me that didn't make sense. It was why the person traded DeAndre Hopkins and Tevin Coleman. Like, DeAndre Hopkins alone, like, knowing Michael Crabtree's hurt is, like, blows away that side. Like, you know, just kind of the wide receiver swap. And then, so he wants Jay Ajayi. Okay, that's all well and good. But Tevin Coleman, when you own Devontae Freeman, like, so you don't want...
Oh, yeah, I forgot to add that in. He owns Freeman as well.
You don't want 2 Falcons running backs, both usable, and one being handcuffed to the other. Probably the most valuable handcuff in all of fantasy football. You don't want those 2, but then you grab 2 Raiders wide receivers to start next to each other.
Just win, baby. Baby.
If you take away, if you just look at the player values, it's closer to even.
Yeah.
When you take into consideration all of the roster management from the owner receiving Crabtree and Ajayi, it's a complete fail. He bombed.
Yeah. Very confusing.
As the GM who pulled this off on one side, I'd like to add
the A
as unbiased as I can. And I'm going to introduce a little bit of a Gruden's Grinder strategy. And it does not always work. And as our fearless leader in the Raiders sweatshirt can agree, sometimes it just feels right and you got to do it because you let it ride, man. I like to call my strategy the watchability strategy, I think. And it comes down to who do I like? Who do I just feel good about? Who has a good vibe to the way that their season's going? And a little victim to the moment. As most watching this podcast probably know, I now live in Houston, have a connection to the Texans through my fiance, whose dad is a season ticket holder, and every once in a while I get to go. I was fortunate enough to be there the day that Watson went nuts against the Titans, and I went, I need Hopkins on my team. I had just picked Watson up on waivers, and I was willing to kind of mortgage the farm to get him on my team because A, I had a rooting interest, B, I couldn't believe the target share he got and how good his young quarterback looked. And although it pained me because I personally spoke to JJ at the Super Bowl during an autograph signing for Hyundai, and I told him, "Hey, should I take you this year in fantasy?" And he looked me in the eye and said, "Absolutely, it's gonna be a good year." I took him at his word. Every once in a while, you get duped. I got duped hard. I didn't realize his offensive line coach was doing Lord knows what. Anyway, back to the actual reality of it. I think Crabtree's still going to be solid. It was a receiver that I valued very highly. He was my first receiver taken off the board in our 14-team league. Somebody who I think is still going to continue to get a lot of targets. He's going to get a lot of red zone looks. I don't know if anybody else is getting red zone looks in the Oakland offense. Jared Cook certainly isn't. Amari Cooper drops everything thrown to him. At this point in time, Crabtree's kind of the guy. I knew I had to give up value to get value. And the watchability factor of DeAndre pairing up with that quarterback and getting double touchdowns, it was garbage time, but it was pretty awesome to see the points rack up on Sunday night, having both in that lineup. Obviously, that's not sustainable every week, but it's a lot of fun. That's why we play for games like that and feel like, you outsmarted the week, if you think of it that way. So,
yeah,
I'd give myself a B. I think it was a B for me, and
Stop.
I think there's value for Ajayi and Crabtree as well.
Hopefully
now that they've got their offensive line coach out of there, they start to figure out what's going on with that offense because they could be good. Ajayi is a very talented running back. I think he's going to bounce back. He's had some tough.
What's going to motivate the
defenses
team
to go
more?
against.
A dude doing lines of coke off a stripper's ass, or the guy holding the Bible? I mean, who knows?
My hope is that Matt Moore. My hope is that Matt Moore steps in, and I think once they realize the Jay Cutler experiment is over in Miami, and that Matt Moore was a very capable guy who led him in a playoff game last year. He is capable. He's competent. He knows the offense. I think the team would rally behind that. I don't know if Jay Cutler's their guy that they're ready to go to battle with. So look for some quarterback shakeup maybe, and I think that could really help turn the Giants season around too.
Agreed. Well, I think that just about does it for us today. Thank you, Greg, for joining us. We will be sure to have you back at some point throughout the year. Appreciate the time today.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. And go Gruden's Grinders, huh?
Awesome. Well, for Sam, Anthony, Greg, and I want to thank everyone for listening today. And, best of luck this week in your fantasy leagues.
Bucks and 6.